created a culture where I believe everybody loves what they do and loves working with each other, because we're all working where we're kind of doubling down on our superpower and then hiring or creating teams where other people's superpowers are actually our weakness, right? So everybody is in this synergistic kind of team where nobody is ever spending too much time on something. Now, you can't completely eradicate this, but not much time on the things that really drive them crazy or that they don't like. And so it's not easy. It's a very difficult culture to develop, but once you develop it, the word gets out. You start recruiting people based on the fact that they already understand your culture is going to help them become greater and double down on what it is that their superpower is. And so we help them uncover that and really build positions around what people are great at naturally.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
You know your people are important, but have you ever thought about how important culture is to the success of your company? Well, every one of the Inc. 5000 level leaders that I talk to knows that their people are extremely important to them scaling up, because they reach a certain point in the business where they can't do it themselves. They've got to bring on others to join them in this mission. And they know that people are critical to the success of the company, and continuing that growth means they must be intentional about culture. And so today we look at how culture is everything. We are with Derek Hansen with Mynt Systems. They are a specialty brand company that does engineering design in the mid-market real estate companies. They were number 1,224 on the Inc. list this past year. They've made it twice in a row. But what we talk about is culture is everything. And Derek shares with us about some of the real insights behind what he's learned about getting the most out of people and how do you get people aligned with the company, and they don't want to leave. They want to really put everything they've got into it. And I love this conversation because if you want people to step up, if you want them to really engage at a higher level, then you want to listen to Derek's interview with me. Before we get there, if you're thinking about what does it take to grow as a leader, then I want to make sure that you know that we have some resources available to you. Not only do we have all these interviews and all the content we create, but we've created a space for you to grow. If you value peers that are growing fast, you want to learn from them, you want to be challenged, you want to really get the latest cutting edge information on how to be an extraordinary leader, then make sure you tune in to fastgrowthboardroom.com. Inside there, we're creating a community of people that want to grow fast. They want their company's value to increase, but they also really want to be extraordinary leaders. Just go to fastgrowthboardroom.com and you will be able to see exactly what we're talking about. And if it's a fit for you, we encourage you to apply. Now, here's the conversation with Derek. Derek, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much.
We are going to talk about people and culture and what that really means in a scaling company, but tell us a little bit about Mynt Systems before we get there.
Yeah, Mynt Systems is a kind of our intention was to become a holistic provider of energy services for the commercial, industrial, real estate market at that kind of that mid-market level, what we would call maybe B and C properties. Our take was that there was a ton of screaming from the rooftops around, let's change, we got to fix the planet. We got to do the right thing. Everybody kind of knew that, but nobody knew who to turn to. The large scale class A, corporate campuses and such all had, the right people approaching them. Some of them even had developed teams of sustainability teams and so on. But at the mid-market level, we felt like it was totally underserved, and nobody knew how to either A, reach those people, or B, how to take very dynamic and complex systems and apply them in one-off bespoke way to these, maybe slightly smaller properties. And so we geared a company specifically for that. And so what we do is transform commercial industrial real estate to being deeply sustainable or zero net energy, zero carbon, highly resilient real estate. So our goal and what we do is structure these systems in a way at which it's an investment strategy for the ownership of that real estate, with a net benefit to both the tenant, of course, the owner as the investor, and then the community and ultimately the ecology at large.
Well, that was a mouthful, and I really appreciate you sharing some of the detail and the work that you guys are doing in this world. And to do this, you've been able to pull together a great group of people with specialized skills in these individual areas of engineering and design and so many things around this. So it really does require a special brand of leadership and culture. How would
Yeah.
you describe your culture?
Our culture is deeply rooted in the idea that you can achieve more together, for one, right? So we don't silo people. Two, it's a fundamental belief in the non-zero sum game. That's kind of it's how we approach the market. As you can tell, our projects are kind of packaged in a way that's a win-win-win. We really love the triple bottom line of people, planet, profit, right? They can all be achieved at the same time. Win for all three. And so we've created that same kind of anchor for our culture internally, which is a non-zero sum game, right? One doesn't do better at the sake of somebody else doing worse, right? It's everybody wins together. And so our culture is, in a nutshell, we like to believe it's very fast paced, very hardworking, but we kind of double down on the idea that if everybody loves what they're doing, they're going to do great work. And so we spend a lot of time recruiting and hiring people for their specific skill. But over time, and it's usually within about a year, 2 years of working with us, we have a series of meetings where we go deep with them and identify what it is that makes them the happiest within their work, right? What it is that makes them the most fulfilled, what gets them out of bed in the morning, what are they excited about? And we gravitate them slowly to where that's more and more of their time is spent working in that space. And so we've created a culture where I believe everybody loves what they do and loves working with each other because we're all working where we're kind of doubling down on our superpower and then hiring or creating teams where other people's superpowers are actually our weakness, right? So everybody is in this synergistic kind of team where nobody is ever spending too much time on something. Now, you can't completely eradicate this, but not much time on the things that really drive them crazy or that they don't like. And so it's not easy. It's a very difficult culture to develop. But once you develop it, the word gets out. You start recruiting people based on the fact that they already understand your culture is going to help them become greater and double down on what it is that their superpower is. And so we help them uncover that and really build positions around what people are great at naturally.
I want to ask you a question on that. Did you say that's about a year into the experiences when you guys go through that? Or
Well, I'd say it's more over the course of a year.
okay,
I've seen it take 2 years. So for a good example is I have my head of design engineering, which sounds like an engineering role. Really, it's actually a business development role. This young man came out of UCLA with a mechanical engineering background. And over the course of just kind of having meetings with him, I realized he had so much of the characteristics of a salesperson, right? Of a guy that really, really likes to go develop new business, work on new concepts. He wasn't a pure engineer. And honestly, finding somebody with an engineering background and engineering skills that also has deep people skills is really rare. And so
yeah,
we took about 2 years to migrate him where he was learning all of our engineering processes and systems. But meanwhile, I was training him on sales and business development, right? And how to work the market. And so now he is second man in our biz dev team at VP of design engineering. So he's doing the design concepts that turn into our deals. And he's as happy as it gets, right? Because we kind of uncovered that he really, really loves to sell. He doesn't want to be the pitch guy, but he loves to be in that sales process. So we married those two things of engineering and business development, which are kind of necessary in our company. But the point is, he came in as an engineer and we, over the course of a year or two, migrated him over into where he's more of a biz dev guy.
great story there, because I think a lot of people get pigeonholed into their degrees and whatnot, and that's the only way leaders see them. But you actually are very intentional about tuning in to what drives them, what really makes them tick internally, so that you can create a space so that they are using those superpowers more often than not. When you think about this style of, did you get it from somewhere else, or is this just something you kind of came up with?
I read a lot of a kind of a broad. I read everything from quantum physics, mechanics, all the way to like spiritual, texts and everything in between. And so I think it's more conceptually for me. I'll be candid. I dropped out of college my first semester. I was not very good in school, and so I had to start to rely on the things. What I realized was that what made me good in business development and sales was reading people. And how would I build a culture around that same thing? Because honestly, I don't have a business degree. I don't know how to build a business. I don't know what building culture looks like other than what I know how to do. So again, I doubled down on my own superpower and turn that into the way that I felt was going to build us a good culture. Culture is everything. People are the business. Anybody that thinks that their product is the business is missing it, right? The people that create the products and create the concepts and do the work to create the product are the business. The product is the end result of kind of a value chain that generates revenue, but it's the people that make a company. And so for me, not having that degree, not having that background, business background, or I had a business background, but not having that business degree background, I should say, education. I had to fall back on what I knew how to do, which was read people. And I figured if I could build a company where everybody was happier than they would be anywhere else, they would not only stay, but they would do great work.
Now, hold on. Derek just said culture is everything. Now, this whole episode is about culture, but I want to share a micro story with you, if you will. I was watching the co-founders of HubSpot, and they're a company that really grown fast after their public IPO. They really were continuing that growth. And the co-founders of that really thought about what does it take for us to continue growth of the company that most people are not paying attention to. And it was two things. It was the product and the people. It takes both. In fact, he said there's two things that we are producers here of. We are product producers of a great product, and we're also the producers of great people. So you want to make sure you're paying attention to both of those. Culture is everything. It's just an example of what's really important inside of companies that are growing fast. Now back to Derek. You've had a while to put this together, and your results of being on the Inc. list has been impressive. You guys were like almost 12, 24 in 2020?
Yes, we were in the top 20th percentile. I don't remember which, but I think the first year we made it was 1,059. I think the second one, yeah, might have been 1224, something like that.
I looked you up. You're 1224. So
I'll take your word for it, Gene.
You have seen some fast growth in the company. Is it attributed to how you're building this culture, or do you think it's just you guys have the right market?
Well, no, yes, we had the right market, but we didn't have it figured out when we launched at all. As I've mentioned, I was I'm a big fan of a customer development model versus a product development model. Customer development model says you go out and you build relationships and you find out what people actually need, get them what they want, show them what they need, and iterate and develop a product over time that's a fit for your market. And so it's been a very iterative process. There's been a lot of changes, a lot of evolution. Which is a lot of work, to be building a market and really refining your offering at the same time. So I think that our culture has been a big part of being able to do that. Some of the breakthroughs in the market that we've created and that's given us the velocity and growth that we've had come from the fact that we have hired people where they are their own form of iconoclast. They're their own kind of maverick, where by coming here, they felt like they had a playground to do their best work. I've attracted talent that I have no business hiring as a small, fast growing young company. I've got talent that really should be making twice as much as they are here somewhere else, but just don't want the corporate culture. They don't want to go do the same thing every day. They have almost a leaning in entrepreneurialism, but just don't have quite the appetite for risk to actually do it. So we've created a culture where those kind of folks can come here and help us change, evolve, get better, iterate, and they feel like they've got the ability to do so, because I haven't sat back and said, "Yep, I've got it all figured out. This is what we do. This is how we do it. You plug in here and just do your job." It's more like, get in here. You're brilliant. Here's what we're doing. How do we evolve this even more? How do we get better? And so, I think Steve Jobs said it. You don't hire great people so you can tell them what to do. You hire great people so they can tell you what to do. A little bit of that idea, right? And it really isn't it's not something I felt like I had figured out early on. This is how I'm going to build my culture. Again, it was me leaning back on what it is that I think I do better than anything else, which is build relationships.
Derek, a lot of leaders in your position would stay away from that entrepreneurial spirited person. Why do you feel like it's been so valuable for the company?
I think a lot of leaders stay away from it because they're worried that the person's going to take their idea, run with it, or take a chunk of the idea and run with it and go start their own thing. My belief is if you're giving them everything that they ever wanted or could ever wish for with their own thing and allow them to do it here in your company, they're not going anywhere, because you're doing all the heavy lifting, hard work of running a company, which, let's be honest, most people don't have any idea how difficult that really is and what it takes. I think one of the things that we do really well is we're very transparent. on how hard it is to run this company. We're very transparent with where the the cash flows and P&Os and all of those things. We let everybody see that so that they can see how difficult it really is to run a business. And that's part of what is that stickiness for employees. Is they're like, hell no, I don't want to go try to do that. I'm already doing the part of the business that I really love. Why would I go do the stuff that I don't want to do? Now, it hasn't happened yet, but I can't guarantee that that won't occur someday, where somebody spins off and says, hey, we want to go start our own thing. But I'm the kind of guy that says, well, wait a second, what is it that you're trying to start and why? And we look at those things and we say, why don't we just bolt that in here? And you can have a share of that. Why don't we just add that to our model, and you can get, let's build in a chunk of returns for you on that, being your idea and your effort. And that tends to work well. We've had that happen a couple times where people had an idea and I said, let's work on that together. So this is a little bit like I'm allowing these super talented people to have kind of, an incubator for their ideas to some extent.
Now, Derek just talked about transparency. Everyone has a transparency line. What I mean by that is you have an idea in your mind of what should be transparent with everyone and what must be held back. What's a secret, if you will. The more secrets you have, the less likely you are to create a culture where people feel connected. But the more open you are, the more transparent, the more your line is to the other side, you will really see the benefit of how it connects people together. Now, are some of those conversations difficult? Absolutely. But fast growth companies understand the importance of transparency because it's the core of trust. And when you create too many secrets, it really takes away from that level of trust. Just something to think about. Back to Derek. I absolutely love this idea because I've been talking about this from stages and from everything I'm doing about how you truly engage people to feel like an owner inside of the company. And what you're describing to me is, with transparency and really connecting to their superpowers. If this is done well, they really don't want to leave because not everybody has that appetite for risk like you talked about.
Very few do, in fact. And I think those that think they do, when you show them the guts of what running a company looks like, they tend to take 2 steps back and go, hold on a second. I like how much entrepreneurial freedom you're giving me within this company. I don't know if I want to go take all that risk. I mean, I tell the team the story of, I had 2 little boys that were 17 months apart, that were, 1 and 2 years old. When we cooked up the idea to start this company, I sold essentially everything I ever owned. Took about 3 months to write a business plan when I had 2 little babies at home and a mom, their mom running in circles trying to keep up with it all, and went out shopping for a little bit of seed capital. And that's the riskiest thing you can possibly do, right? I gave up probably more equity than I should have for the amount of money we got because I put myself in such a high risk situation. I really didn't have a whole lot of leverage, but here we are now. It was worth it. People often think of starting companies as some big kind of glamorous thing, and it's not. It's for very few people, I think.
Well, Derek, let's put a spotlight on that for you. Like, where does this confidence and courage come from that allows you to be the leader that your team needs?
Wow, there's a lot. There's a lot there. I'll start with some surface level stuff. It comes a lot from my dad, my parents. They started a company when I was young, when I was about a year old. My dad, he candidly says I was kind of unemployable. He was the kind of guy that just didn't like working for other people, didn't like people telling him what to do, and found a small business idea that he could run with and built it brick by brick. We recently sold his company for him after 43 years, I think it was, and he was able to retire comfortably. But I grew up around that. I grew up around you eat what you kill. And so I think for me, I didn't know anything else. And I think I have a lot of his personality as well, which is I'm just not very employable. I couldn't imagine working for somebody else. And the only other person I've worked for 3 other people, one of them being my dad. And the other 2 were very short-term, young, early in my career employments. But I think it comes from watching him. There's more to it. I think I've been diagnosed as an adult as dyslexic, and there's a lot in that as well. But one of the primary keys is that it's you're very right-brained as a dyslexic, very creative. And so for me, risk doesn't look the same. My wife laughs because what looks like extreme, she's our CFO, by the way, and an accountant by trade, of course. And she's the opposite, right? For her, it's risk management, right? So it makes a good team, she and I. But she laughs because there's things where I don't see hardly any risk, and she's like, "That's massive risk." So I think it's personality type. I think it's understanding. I think people should spend more time. Young people should spend more time in introspect and trying to figure out who they really are and what makes them tick. Because if you can figure out what makes you tick and double down on that, that's what I think where you really get successful.
Well, I really appreciate you being here, Derek, to share your journey and vision of leadership and growing a fast growth company like Mynt Systems.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate the time, Gene.
I want to recap here a little bit. I know that Derek listening in here because I want to make sure I get this right. But when you build a business, really focus on solving problems, you want to make sure you invite the right people along with you. And you want to make sure those people feel like they're put first. Because if you put money first, if you put even customers first, it really can degrade the experience they have, and they might be looking for something else. But if you truly make them feel first, put them in meaningful positions, create the kind of leadership that allows them to excel, then you will have a great company because you'll figure out all the challenges that come your way, because there will be challenges. And this is a heart of why fast growth companies grow fast. Transparency is a key part of that feeling of ownership and this entrepreneurial spirit. All of these themes play out in a lot of the interviews we have here. If you're wondering what your next step is as a leader and as a culture, I want to invite you to check out Fast Growth Boardroom. If you are thinking about growing as a leader and being an extraordinary leader and creating growth beyond where you are today, then make sure you check out Fast Growth Boardroom. It is for those leaders that want to really be courageous and confident in how they make decisions, how they move forward. And you have to apply. If it's right for you, just go to fastgrowthboardroom.com. When you think about growth and you think about leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.